How's it going, everybody?
Good. How are you?
All right, let's get rocking.
And when you have as many players as you have and you're using them in multiple ways, how much time do you and the staff spend every night charting how many snaps guys are getting? And is there a point in camp where you go, well, we're going to have to kind of get an order in here and go with that?
Yeah, I'll work on the backwards first. The question was, at what point, a lot of stuff, a lot of people to get in, a lot of packages. We have 2 more installs left, so that's the last 2, and that'll take place tomorrow and Sunday. And then during practice in the evenings, we do chart who's where, and we keep, who's in production and who's hitting things well. Because it's not just, you look at the scheme to see what you like, but you also are looking to see, this is a role that we can feature this player in. These are things he can do. So now that you get into like one-on-ones, and now you get to see someone guard a tight end, it's okay, that's a real strength of Cox. I knew it would be coming out of LSU, but you also need to see it. And so finding some of those roles are a big part of it. Obviously, when you get the pads on, you wanted to see who can be, strong and run defender, and you thought Brent Urban would, and now I see a guy like a Hamilton and Carlos Watkins. Those are things that you see as a big guy you wouldn't be able to necessarily without the padded parts of practice. So the last couple of days, from a padded standpoint, it's been helpful for the evaluations for sure, especially for the big guys.
How impactful on Golston is missing this time that he's missing?
Yeah, I think as a young player, anytime you miss, there's going to be an impact. The good news side of him, this is a really bright guy that through the practices in the spring, we did play him at a number of different positions. So I would say mentally, from a playbook and that side of thing, he's in good shape. The thing that all young players need, you know what it is, reps. And they need time and experience. So when it's ready, we'll get him back and work him into that. I was very encouraged about where he had stopped during the spring. And so not to have him for a while, it's a bummer, but I know that he is coming back, so that's a good thing. And when it does, we'll make sure, we hit him every step of the way. But mentally, he's good. Just there's nothing like playing.
How important is the Hall of Fame game? It doesn't count, but maybe it does count a little bit because of
anytime you get a chance to compete, I think it's a big thing. And so in the preseason, for a lot of players who, new system, they need time, they need experience, and there's nothing like going against, an opponent and game scenario and situation. So to be in that arena as a young player and step in and play and get some experience, I think it's super important. So I see it as a total advantage when you do have it, because here's some guys that you want to see more of, and you want to see them in those moments. So for the older players, you won't see that as much. But for the younger players, anytime you can get a chance to go compete and do it, they want it. And that's the thing right now. Guys are wanting more reps, and that's a good thing. That's what you want from a player, where they're feeling the urgency. I need a little more. And so I had told the coaches those are rich people problems. In the early part of training camp, guys want more. At the end, yeah, I'm doing good. I'm okay. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the guys push it, because I've been very pleased with their effort of where they're at. And of course, everybody wants more reps, because as a young player, what are you trying to prove? I can do this. I belong. I want an opportunity to demonstrate that, to show it. And that's what competitive moments are about. So I love the fact that we have an extra preseason game to show some of those competitive moments.
How about for you, the mechanics of it, being on the sidelines, or if you're up in the booth, we don't know where you're going to be, but just getting used to play after play, calling it and being ready?
Yeah, I think, new staff defensively to put together. Clearly we have our game day roles and how we'll go execute those, but I'll be in the press box to call the game, and have a couple guys up there with me. The rest of the guys will be down the field, and each of them will have some roles. But much like when you go through a first practice, this is how we're going to do. This is where we're going to go. So preseasons are good for lots of firsts. This is where we're going to be at halftime. This is what we're going to cover. And so don't miss one step, of the prepreration and how it goes through. So yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Why is press box the place for you during a game?
I think for me, it's best. You're out of the emotional part of it. And on the sideline, it's good, because you're feeling the connection with the guys, and I definitely miss that. But I would also say, you don't have anybody grabbing, hey, this just happened, or there's a holding play, what's the personnel? So in the press box, you just have to, you just get to stay in the moment, and you see what happens so much more quickly. I hadn't done that before, and I got to thank Coach Carroll. He was the one that had recommended that to me, because at his time at San Francisco, he had been on, wanted to be on the field, and they had recommended he go up into the press box as well, and he was right. It was the best spot to call it, where you're not getting pulled, you have all your information right in front of you, and so I definitely thank him for that.
Dan, some of the veterans who were drafted while Marinelli was still here talk about how when you come in, they feel comfortable because they feel like this is the scheme we were drafted to play. What's the key to, I guess, maximizing that familiarity, but also encouraging them to do different things, different packages and disguises?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say probably system-wise, there would be some similarities. And so some players, I even went back a year, to look at some other things and some other techniques. But at the end of it, finding good communication. This may be just like you have done. This is close to what you've done. So finding some similarities. I've certainly watched, through the NFL, and Rod, I knew his background. So it's not a carbon copy, but I would say there's some similarities.
He's one of those guys who feels, this is more what he fits to do. It fits his skill. Is that what you see from him, why he's been able to play fast?
I've been really impressed by him. It's not just the speed; it's the technique that he's using, trusting where he's at, what to do. You knew in the off season he was going to work hard on his tackling, and I'd say from the linebacking standpoint for Jalen and Leighton both, I felt their intensity from the off season about what they wanted to improve upon, and I see that carrying over now into their work. They're both very intentional about what they want to get better at, and I've definitely seen that come on the field.
Just playing with a swagger and a confidence factor into creating turnovers?
Well, I think swagger and confidence creates speed, because now when you have confidence, you really don't have to think and the hesitation. Let's face it, when we're confident, we know exactly what to do and we can let it rip. And so by playing fast, that means you have confidence. And that goes into a lot of ways. Playing fast isn't just running, it's trusting the communication, owning the leverage. So I can play a certain technique to allow you to go. And so what's nice about the team right now, you're seeing some of that come to life on the field. There was a couple plays yesterday. I really saw a play from Leighton and from Randy really ripping and running, but it was a corner who had set the edge of the defense to allow these two to go and make this kind of hit right at the same time. So those moments are good teachable ones. And when we get a chance to go back into the film room together as a defensive unit, I kind of go through the highlights of the day and the lowlights and things we want to improve upon. But that was a play to say, man, this is a good job of trusting your teammate to be in the right spot so you can 100% let it rip. And once that happens, that's when the speed takes place. That's when the turnovers can happen because you're trusting it. I've been pleased with the mindset for the ball. Over the time, you have to work at it in practice. Is this a play I can go take a shot on? You don't want to do those in the game, but you have to push yourself to see, can I get to that play? Can I get to that play? When do I undercut somebody to stay on top? If you don't put yourself into those moments to really try to force it to see what you can be, then I think you're bullshitting yourself a little bit when you get to the game. You've got to put some of these moments in, and so Mike does a good job of putting us in a lot of competitive moments. We were in red zone in 2 minutes and 4 minutes, so this is where it's at. How am I going to play this play? And all the situation work that we've done has helped on that.
You told us last week you had to be cognizant of not overloading Parsons as you were looking at him doing a lot of different. Have you pared back a little bit? Have you got to the point where you want to see?
Yeah, no paring back. It's challenging on all rookies, not just Micah, the first lap through, and so that's why we're almost right near the end of our package, and the responsibility of me and for the staff is to make sure even that gets pared down some, as we're moving into the next, few weeks, and by the time the next few weeks come, it gets a little sharper, it gets a little more in focus and a little clearer of the things that we can do really, really well. As coaches, you have a pretty big umbrella that you start with when you do the install. You may need this for a contingency play. You may need this at the end of the game. You may need this. Some of them are one-offs, but it's still volume for the install. But for the things that you'd have up every single week, more reps at it, more reps. And that allows you to play fast and fast and fast again and again and again. So it's part of the process going through it. You don't want to have to put something in the game week that you've never done before. You don't know the ins and outs of it. You don't know, the strengths and weaknesses. That looks good, what, the team had put in. Why don't we try it? And there's a lot that goes in behind the scenes. So you try to get as many of those reps in training camp as you can.
You don't do any the footwork and technique that you coach to a 6'4" cornerback like Deshaun, is that different than what's on the plate of a 5'10"
Yes.
corner? And how do you adapt his size so that with his movement, his size isn't a liability?
Yeah, but use it where it's at its strength. Exactly. So, yes, I would say let's all think fundamentally this is the scheme. But then within it, what are some tools that you'd use based on who you were and how you play. Some players, and you're talking specifically about cornerback, it sounds like, are better just off. Some guys want to be on the end of the line to fight. And so having the ability to work in and out with both of the techniques, that's the big thing. Now, there's some formations that, hey, you got to get out, this is the technique you play. But it does allow us to play in a scheme that the player can have him play to his strengths. And that's, I think, what you're talking about.
When you don't do any real tackling compared to 20 years ago or whatever,
Yep.
you got to get drastically better in run defense. How have you learned to see what's out there and determine are we really getting better?
Yes, and it's a huge point, and it's something that we hit on a daily basis, because although you're not tackling to the ground, you are talking about your angles and your pursuit, and the term we use is called tracking. And how do you track the ball carrier? Usually there's a leverage. We're a leverage-based tackling team, so if you were running to this side, to my right, it'd be a right shoulder hit. So how do I track your hip with my right shoulder? I can run through the contact. Conversely, on the other side of me, if you're on my left side, I'm owning the leverage to there. So part of tackling is owning your leverage. And how can you see that? You can watch it on film. Hey, man, what's the leverage here? And having guys like Tony Pollard run down the field, even after the first guy, in practice, may tag him off or get to a leverage, now the next guy has to work it. The next guy has to work it. So there's some benefits when you're not taking a guy to the ground, because the running plays or the passing ones as well go on for 20 or 30 yards. Linebacker gets a look at it. Safety gets a look at it. Is there anything like the to the ground? No. But having the open field tackling drills that we do against the offense players, like a guy like CD, you better own your leverage or he's going to make you look bad. And so there's no better guys to practice against than the offense. Sometimes when you can see, imagine a linebacker trying to work a linebacker, it's just not the same. So the good thing here, Coach puts both sides together in some fundamental periods, and that alone helps. Now, I won't have a real sense until we do start tackling. But the good news is I think we're taking it to a space that you can.
You mentioned how key it was to go back multiple years on some of these defenders' films. How, if at all, did Jalen's game last year look different to you than his film from previous years? And based off what you saw from that, what's the key to maximizing his game this year?
Well, I'd say there's a number of things, but I would say one of the things that's really jumped out to me is I feel like his stride extension has certainly improved. I feel every bit of his speed. There's been a couple of plays that he was flying, and at times I thought maybe those were smaller steps. He's worked extremely hard now. When he's closing, whoom, man, do you feel that speed to go. So I would say that's one of the things for him that I've certainly seen. We're blitzing him more. I think he's a physical player. He's always had a good run and hit factor to him, so that's something I'm looking forward to seeing come to light for him.
What are your impressions been of Neville Gallimore?
We've talked about in the past, the guy who takes the jump from year one to year two, and for everybody who's covered football for a long time, that happens. Some are bigger than others. Some are 2 to 3, but this is the trajectory that you want a player to go to, and that's what I'm seeing from him. He's lighter than he had been. That was by design from us, but I feel his strength, I feel his get off, I feel his upfield movements. So he's off to a good start, and I would say he is one of the players you see ready to take the step, ready to take the jump. He's really putting out effort to do that.
Dan, Casey, Curse, Hooker when he gets out there, McQuamu, what'll be the separators? You can't keep all of those guys. What'll be the separators?
I would say that's a good question, but I would say that the consistency in the performance for certain is one. The good news is a number of these players have the critical factors that you're looking for, like whether it's size to guard somebody, the middle field play of a guy like Kays who can really run. So it's good to have versatility, when you're building a defense, because not every team that you play is in a similar way, in terms of their scheme and how they have players, and these big tight ends that we're seeing compared to some teams that just regularly play in 3 and 4 receivers. I think the name of the game, especially at the safety spot, is versatility. You want some that can go down and guard receivers, and then you need some other guys that can really break out of the middle of the field, and then some other guys that can really guard guys. If you have them all in one, man, you hit it pretty big. But more often than not, it's more than one job.
How is Neal handling this new role that he's in from what he's done previously?
Yeah, I'm proud of the work that he's put in. He's very intentional about his improvement, about his technique, and he's off to an excellent start at the linebacker. He's played a number of the positions when he was in Atlanta. We just tricked him and didn't call him a linebacker. We said, "No, man, you're a safety." But he was playing linebacker things. So I never told him he was a linebacker, but he was a linebacker, 70% of the snaps. So the just likes help with him. Hey, this is just like a call you had. This is something that you've built on from before. So he's been off to an excellent start at that. Just not playing the deep half of the field, which he did some, but he played down in the box quite a bit. So it's not so foreign for him.
And how has Terrell Basham's energy impacted your defense? And has there been a favorite moment or two that he's brought that energy?
Wow, that's awesome. He has impacted us for sure. And when you have, people who are uplifting, who can bring that, it rubs off to others. There's no question about it. What I've seen so far from him is versatility. I could see him having a role where he plays on third down, both at end and tackle. On first and second down, we see him as a DN. He's going to have a special teams role. So sometimes the role players, that make up a team have critical roles, to help play winning football. And I think Basham is a clear example of a player who can play winning football and add to the team. So we're excited about what he's brought so far. He's a very versatile guy. He really is.
A number of guys who are role players, that come from different places where they were role players. You don't have any, proven big-time playmakers.
Well, I guess we got to wait and see on that.
But do you see the potential for that, or from that?
Well, yeah, I see the potential for that. And ball hawking and tackling and finishing people, I definitely see that. And it's a great thing about football, man. So you get to go out and prove it, and so the best of the best, you get to prove it. And I have a sense there'll be some people on this defense that will have very big chips on their shoulder with much to prove, coaches included.
Thank